You wake up next to the woman you swore to love forever, and you don't recognize the person who is there. I'm not talking about a physical change. I'm talking about something much deeper and more disturbing. The sweet woman who laughed at your jokes, who supported you, who admired you has simply disappeared. In her place, there is a critical, dissatisfied person, constantly irritated by everything you do. And the worst part, you can't identify when exactly this happened. This transformation is not an isolated case. Thousands of men around the world live this silent reality. They wake up confused, wondering what they did wrong, where they went astray. The truth is, you didn't do anything wrong. What happened was something much more complex and revealing about human nature and the power dynamics within modern relationships. During the dating period, everything seemed perfect. She was understanding when you needed to go out with friends. She didn't complain when you spent hours playing video games or watching football. She accepted your flaws naturally, even found them funny. Arguments were rare, and when they happened, they were resolved quickly. You felt respected, admired, desired. You thought you had found the ideal partner to build a life with. Then came the marriage. For the first few months, everything remained relatively the same. But little by little, small changes began to emerge. A criticism here, a complaint there. Nothing too serious at first. You ignored it, thinking it was just an adjustment period. After all, living together requires adaptation from both parties, right? But the criticisms intensified. The way you leave the towel in the bathroom. The way you chew. Your loud laugh. Your friends who were once cool are now terrible influences. Your hobbies that were once interesting are now a waste of time. Every aspect of your personality that was previously accepted or even admired now becomes the target of constant disapproval. And here is the central point no one told you: she hasn't changed. She was always like this. What changed is that she can finally stop acting. During dating, there was a role to play. The need to conquer, to keep you interested, to prove she was the right choice. After the wedding, with the commitment formalized, that need simply evaporated. Think of it as a prolonged job interview. You dress well, choose your words carefully, show only your best angles. But after you are hired and the probationary period passes, you relax. You start arriving a few minutes late. You complain about the boss. You show who you really are. Marriage, for many people, works exactly like this. Modern society has created a dangerous illusion that men and women operate in exactly the same way, want the same things, think in the same way. This comfortable lie is destroying relationships by the thousands. The biological and psychological reality is that there are fundamental differences in how each sex processes emotions, makes decisions, and views commitments. Women, in general, live in an emotional world. Their decisions are filtered by how things make them feel. What seems right at the moment. The narrative they have created in their own minds about who you are and who they deserve. It's not a matter of intelligence or capability. It is simply a different way of processing reality. And when this emotional reality conflicts with the objective reality of daily life, problems arise. Men, on the other hand, tend to operate in the realm of solutions. They see a problem, they seek to correct it. They evaluate situations more logically and directly. This does not mean an absence of emotions, but rather a different way of processing and expressing them. When these two ways of seeing the world collide within a marriage, without mutual understanding, the result is frustration on both sides. Modern feminism promised freedom and equality, but delivered confusion and unhappiness. By trying to erase the natural differences between men and women, it created an entire generation that no longer knows how to relate. Men were taught to be too sensitive, to give up their own authority, to apologize for existing. Women were taught to reject their natural instincts for care and support, to see partnership as competition, to treat submission as weakness. And here is something that will shock you: your wife no longer respects you because you allowed her not to respect you. When you gave in to every irrational demand. When you apologized for things that weren't your fault. When you placed temporary peace above your own dignity. Every time you chose to avoid conflict instead of setting clear boundaries, you taught her that she can treat you however she wants. This is not your fault. No one taught you how the real power dynamic within a relationship works. We grew up watching romantic movies where the man who humiliates himself wins the woman's heart. We hear that a relationship is about constant compromise, about always giving in, about doing everything for her happiness. Romantic lies that destroy men from the inside. The inconvenient truth is that attraction is not a rational choice. Respect is not won through submission. A woman does not wake up one day and consciously decide to respect you less. This happens automatically when you repeatedly show weakness, when you fail to establish and maintain boundaries, when you act as if you need her approval to exist. Observe marriages that actually work, where the wife still admires her husband after decades, where there is genuine peace and not just an absence of conflict. You will notice a pattern. The man maintains his position. He is loving, but he is not a doormat. He listens, but he does not blindly obey. He provides and protects, but he also demands respect in return. There is a natural hierarchy that both respect without needing to discuss it. Your grandparents knew this. Your great-grandparents knew this. Every successful civilization throughout human history understood this basic principle. But somehow, in recent decades, we decided that thousands of years of accumulated wisdom were wrong, that we could rewrite human nature through ideology and goodwill. The result? Stratospheric divorce rates. Men and women equally unhappy. Children growing up in broken homes. An epidemic of loneliness and disconnection even within marriages. And yet we continue to insist that the problem lies with the individuals, never the belief system that was sold to us. So what to do when you realize that the woman you married no longer exists, or rather, never really existed? How to regain lost respect. How to rebuild a relationship that began on false foundations. The answers exist, but they require courage to face uncomfortable truths about yourself and about the nature of human relationships. If you are recognizing your own life in this explanation, if you feel that tightness in your chest when you realize that you are not alone in this experience, then keep following along. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because what comes next will completely change your perspective on relationships and give you practical tools to regain control of your life. Your wife's transformation after marriage was not magic. It was a revelation. And understanding this is the first step in deciding what to do about it. Now let's talk about what really happens inside her mind after the ring is on her finger. There is a profound psychological shift that occurs when a woman feels she has definitely won you over. Marriage, for her, represents security. And security, paradoxically, is the silent killer of attraction. When she wasn't sure about you, she had to make an effort. Uncertainty created tension, and tension generates emotional investment. She thought about you constantly. She wondered if you were interested in other women. She actively worked to maintain your attention. This dynamic, although exhausting, kept her interest alight. Marriage eliminated all that tension at once. Think about anything in life that you conquered easily. A job that accepted you without an interview. A game you finished without difficulty. A goal you achieved without real effort. How did you feel? You probably didn't value it much. Now think about what cost you blood, sweat, and tears. The thing you almost gave up on several times. The value you place on those achievements is completely different. The same principle applies to relationships. When you became too predictable, too available, too guaranteed, your perceived value plummeted. Not because you objectively changed, but because the psychological dynamic that maintained her interest was destroyed. She knows exactly where you will be, what you will do, how you will react to everything. Zero mystery. Zero challenge. And here is something that goes against everything you were taught. She doesn't want an egalitarian partner. She wants a leader. Consciously, she may even say she wants equality, that she detests machismo, that she values sensitivity. But unconsciously, biologically, she responds to strength, decisiveness, and authority. When you act as her equal in everything, consulting on every decision, asking for permission to exist, you kill attraction at the root. Pay attention to her complaints. She complains that you don't listen to her, but when you listen to every word and do everything she asks, she respects you less. She says she wants communication, but when you open your heart completely, share your insecurities, cry in front of her, something changes in her eyes. A subtle disappointment that she herself cannot explain. Modern society sold you the lie that vulnerability generates intimacy. In certain controlled contexts, that is true. But when a man becomes emotionally dependent on his wife's validation, when he seeks in her the emotional support he should seek in himself or in other men, he ceases to be attractive. She may feel sorry for you, she may even love you in a maternal sense, but she no longer desires you. Then something devastating happens. She starts testing you constantly. They are unconscious tests, most of the time. She creates drama out of nowhere to see how you react. She makes absurd demands to check if you will give in. She provokes arguments for no apparent reason to check if you still have a backbone. And every time you fail these tests, every time you choose temporary peace instead of defending your position, the disrespect grows. These tests are not conscious malice. They are deeply rooted evolutionary mechanisms. She needs to know if you are strong enough to protect her and your future children when things get really tough. If you fall apart in the face of invented drama, what will you do in the face of a real crisis? Her primitive brain is constantly evaluating whether she chose the right partner. And the more you try to please her, the worse it gets. You buy flowers for no reason. You do all the housework. You cancel commitments with friends to be with her. You agree with everything she says. You apologize for breathing wrong. And the result? More complaints, more dissatisfaction, more emotional and physical distance. You are doing everything right according to modern advice, but everything wrong according to human nature. Physical intimacy disappears. First, they are valid excuses. Headache, tiredness, work stress. You accept it because you are understanding and modern. But weeks turn into months. And when it finally happens, it is mechanical, obligatory, without passion. You feel like you are bothering her, that you are a burden. The woman who once actively desired you now tolerates your touch. Meanwhile, you see how she acts with other men. That coworker receives genuine laughs. That friend of hers receives attention you haven't received for months. Not necessarily physical cheating, but a completely different energy. And when you comment on it, you are insecure, controlling, toxic. How dare you question? The painful truth is that respect cannot be negotiated or begged for. Either you naturally impose it through your actions and posture, or you won't have it. When you establish that certain things are unacceptable and maintain that position even in the face of tears, shouting, or threats, something interesting happens. She may hate it at the moment, but she respects you afterwards. Your grandparents instinctively understood this. Your grandfather didn't ask permission to make decisions about the family. He didn't consult your grandmother about every detail of his life. He had his spaces, his friends, his activities. And your grandmother, even if she occasionally complained, deep down admired this firmness. There were clear roles, defined expectations, and paradoxically this created more harmony than modern egalitarian marriages. But you were taught that this is oppression. That a healthy relationship is total democracy. That important decisions must be an absolute consensus. So you get stuck in endless discussions about trivial things. Nothing is decided because both have equal veto power. Male leadership has been labeled as abuse, and the result is homes without direction, navigating according to momentary emotions. And she feels that lack of leadership. Unconsciously, desperately. When you don't decide, she has to decide. When you don't lead, she has to lead. But this goes against her biological programming. She may be a company CEO, a leader in every area of life, but within the romantic relationship, she wants to rest from that burden. She wants a man who simply knows what to do. The conflict intensifies because both are frustrated. You feel disrespected, unvalued, sexually rejected. She feels overwhelmed, disappointed, stuck with someone who does not match the image she had. Neither of you is completely wrong, but both are playing a game whose rules no one has properly explained. The fights become more frequent and more virulent. Discussions about dishes turn into attacks on your character. She brings up mistakes from years ago. Nothing you do is enough. You work hard, but you don't earn enough. You earn well, but you don't spend enough time at home. You stay at home, but you don't help enough. It's a battle that cannot be won because the criteria constantly change. The worst is realizing that you are walking on eggshells in your own home. You never know what mood you will encounter when you arrive. A wrong word detonates a disproportionate emotional explosion. You learn to be quiet, to have no opinion, to simply agree. And with each concession, you die a little inside while her disrespect grows proportionally. Married friends around you report similar experiences, but everyone pretends everything is fine. No one publicly admits that marriage has become an emotional prison. Everyone posts happy photos on social media while slowly dying inside. The The loneliness of being married is worse than the loneliness of being single, because it is accompanied by shame and a sense of failure. A moment of breakdown arrives. It could be a particularly brutal argument. It could be when you realize you no longer feel anything when you look at her. It could be when she says something so disrespectful that something inside you simply switches off. This is the point of no return, where you finally see the situation with brutal clarity. You realize you sacrificed your identity trying to save something that perhaps never truly existed. Your friends disappeared because she always created drama when you went out. Your hobbies were abandoned because she considered it selfish for you to have time for yourself. Your family was pushed away because they were never good enough for her. You became a shadow of the man you once were. And here is the truth nobody wants to hear: you allowed all of this. Every boundary she crossed, you let it slide. Every disrespect she showed, you swallowed in silence. Every piece of you that died, you voluntarily surrendered thinking it would bring peace. But peace gained through self-destruction is not peace. It is surrender. The anger comes. Not against her specifically, but against the whole system that deceived you. Against the movies that sold you fairy tale romance. Against the advice that told you to be more sensitive, more understanding, more available. Against a society that called you toxic for wanting to be treated with basic respect. Against yourself for believing all of it. You start to see patterns everywhere. You realize your divorced friends tell almost identical stories. That men around you walk with hunched shoulders, defeated, with no spark in their eyes. That there is a silent epidemic of men destroyed by relationships that followed all the modern rules and yet failed miserably. And then a terrible question arises: is it worth continuing? Why? For the children who daily witness their mother's disrespect for their father and learn that this is normal? For the financial comfort of keeping the family together while you emotionally die inside? For fear of others' opinions, the stigma of divorce, of starting over from scratch? The answer is not simple. Modern divorce is scorched earth for men. The judicial system unfairly favors women. You can lose your house, savings, half of your retirement, and still pay alimony for years. Your access to your children is at her discretion. Your social reputation will be destroyed because she will control the narrative. Mutual friends will believe her version. But staying also has a cost. Psychological cost of living in constant war. Emotional cost of sharing a bed with someone who despises you. Spiritual cost of waking up every day knowing you are betraying yourself by accepting unacceptable treatment. Which of these hells is preferable? Some men choose the path of total capitulation. They simply give up on being men. They agree to live as emotional slaves in exchange for some semblance of domestic peace. They bury everything that made them unique and become automatons who work, pay bills, and obey. They technically exist, but they do not live. Others explode. They become angry and resentful versions of themselves. Bitterness consumes everything. Every interaction becomes a battle. They hit back at every provocation, escalate every conflict, turn the home into a perpetual combat zone. Nobody wins, especially the children who grow up thinking relationships are war. But there is a third path that few find. It is the path of recovering one's own dignity regardless of the marriage's outcome. It is looking in the mirror and deciding that, no matter what happens, you will no longer betray yourself. You will no longer accept disrespect. You will no longer negotiate your value as a man. This path requires brutal courage. It means setting boundaries knowing that she may explode, threaten divorce, temporarily make your life miserable. It means being willing to lose the marriage to have a chance of saving it. Because the paradoxical truth is that only when you genuinely demonstrate that you can live without her does she start to value you again. It is not manipulation. It is the recovery of natural balance. When you were dating, you had your own life. She was part of it, not the center. You had options, even if you didn't exercise them. There was uncertainty about your commitment. This kept her interest high and her respect intact. After the marriage, you gave away all your power. You made her the absolute center of your existence. You eliminated all uncertainty about your commitment. You cut off all other options. And you expected this to generate gratitude and love. But it generated boredom and contempt. Recovering this balance means rebuilding your life independently of her. Going back to the gym, not to impress her, but because you deserve to be fit. Resuming contact with friends, not to provoke her, but because male friendships are essential. Developing hobbies and passions, not to escape her, but because you are more than just a husband. Her reaction will be interesting. First will come accusations. You are having an affair. You have changed. You no longer care. Let her think what she wants. Do not justify, do not over-explain, do not ask for permission. Just continue being the man you should have been from the beginning. Then will come attempts to sabotage. She will create drama on the days you plan to go out. She will make impossible demands precisely when you're doing something for yourself. She will test whether you have truly changed or if it is just temporary performance. Maintain your position calmly and firmly. Then something surprising happens. She starts to observe you differently. Uncertainty returns. You are no longer guaranteed. You have your own life again. Others may find you interesting. She needs to compete for your attention instead of simply having it guaranteed. And this, ironically, reignites something that was dead. But here is the crucial point. You don't do this to manipulate her back. You do it because you have recovered your dignity and self-esteem. If she responds positively, great. If she doesn't respond, you are already prepared to move on. You have stopped needing her approval to feel valuable. This internal transformation is the real climax. It's not about saving the marriage. It's about saving yourself. Because a man who recovers his essence, his purpose, his inner strength, that man will be fine regardless of whether there is any woman by his side or not. And paradoxically, that is exactly the man whom women genuinely respect and desire. The great lesson that emerges from all of this is not cynicism about relationships or hatred towards women. It is a deep understanding of human nature, the dynamics of attraction, and the vital importance of never betraying yourself for anyone. Relationships can be incredibly rewarding when built on the correct foundations. The correct foundation begins with you. A man without his own purpose, without a personal mission, without an identity beyond husband, is doomed to relational failure. You need to be something before sharing your life with someone. You need to have direction, ambition, passions that exist independently of any woman. When you are complete alone, the relationship becomes a complement, not a crutch. Women do not want to be the center of your universe. Consciously they may say they do, but unconsciously this suffocates and bores them. They want to be part of the orbit of a man who has his own internal sun shining brightly. They want to bask in the light you generate, not be the source of that light. When you make her your sun, you become a cold planet waiting for borrowed heat. Genuine respect is born from admiration. She needs to admire you to respect you. And admiration comes from you being excellent at something, always growing, having high standards for yourself. It's not about being perfect. It's about being a man in constant evolution, who doesn't settle, who faces challenges, who has a backbone. Setting boundaries is not cruelty. It is sanity. When you clearly define what you accept and what you do not accept in the treatment you receive, you are creating a safe structure for both of you. She may test those boundaries initially, but when she realizes they are real and consistent, there is relief. Because boundaries mean you are strong enough to lead. Effective communication in relationships does not mean discussing everything exhaustively. It means speaking less and acting more. Your actions define who you are much more than your words. When you say something is unacceptable but continue to accept it, your words become irrelevant noise. When you simply act according to your values without announcing it, you communicate much more powerfully. Sexuality within marriage directly reflects the dynamic of power and respect. When there is genuine attraction, desire, admiration, physical intimacy flows naturally. When these elements are absent, sex becomes a painful obligation. You cannot negotiate desire. You cannot argue someone into feeling attracted. You can only be the kind of man who naturally inspires those feelings. Many marriages can be saved, but not through conventional methods. Traditional couples therapy often makes things worse because it operates under false premises about absolute equality and excessive emotional communication. What really works is the man recovering his healthy masculinity and the woman relaxing into her natural femininity, without forcing artificial roles. But some marriages are beyond recovery. When there is genuine abuse, repeated infidelity, pathological disrespect that does not respond to any positive change from you, then preserving your mental health may require a strategic exit. There is no honor in unnecessary martyrdom. You are not obligated to burn completely to keep someone warm. If you decide to leave, do so with intelligent planning. Protect yourself financially and legally. Document everything relevant. Seek legal advice before announcing decisions. The system can be brutally unfair to men in divorces, so naivete can cost decades of work and stability. Be smart, not just brave. For the younger ones watching, prevention is infinitely easier than cure. Choose your partner wisely. Observe how she treats waiters, drivers, people who can offer her nothing. See how she talks about her ex. Check her relationship with her father. Assess whether she respects masculinity or sees it as toxicity. These indicators predict a lot about what the marriage will be like. Do not marry just because you reached a certain age or because everyone else is getting married. Do not marry due to social or family pressure. Do not marry because she threatened to break up if you don't propose. Marry only when you find a partner who genuinely admires you, who respects your leadership, who values healthy masculinity, and only when you yourself are complete as a man. Understand that modern marriage, under current laws, is an extremely risky contract for men. You are betting everything you built on the hope that she won't change drastically. This is a serious gamble that deserves equally serious consideration. Romance cannot blind you to legal realities and divorce statistics. Your wife's transformation after marriage revealed an uncomfortable truth: she was always like this. The dating period was a well-executed audition for a role she did not intend to play forever. This doesn't necessarily make her a villain. It makes her human. We all show edited versions of ourselves initially. The problem arises when expectations created during the audition violently collide with permanent reality. You have power over this situation, more than you think. Power to set standards. Power to maintain boundaries. Power to continuously develop yourself. Power to decide what you accept and what you reject. Power to be a complete man with or without her by your side. This power was always there. You were just convinced not to use it. Rebuilding a destroyed relationship takes time and consistency. Don't expect instant magical changes. It will take time for her to trust that your transformation is real and permanent. There will be setbacks. She will test whether you have truly changed or if you are just temporarily pretending. Your consistency over months will prove the veracity of your change. The ultimate goal is not to win a battle against your wife. It is to create a partnership where both respect natural roles, where there is complementarity instead of constant competition, where there is genuine peace founded on mutual understanding of human nature. Relationships can be tremendous sources of joy when built correctly. But always remember, your inner peace, your integrity, your dignity as a man can never be negotiated. No relationship is worth the price of your soul. You can love deeply, invest completely, fight bravely for the marriage, but always maintaining that non-negotiable line of self-respect. When you respect yourself, you teach others to respect you. The journey you started by recognizing these patterns is just the beginning. Real growth requires consistent action, not just intellectual understanding. Apply these truths. Test them in reality. Adjust as needed. Become a permanent student of relational dynamics and masculine development. If this content resonated with you, if you finally found explanations that make sense of your lived experience, then don't stop here. Subscribe to the channel to continue this journey of self-discovery and growth. Share with other men who need to hear these truths. And above all, start today to rebuild yourself as the man you were born